I want to share a story about invisibility, and I don't know if you've ever had that thought, he doesn't even see me, or I feel invisible. I've definitely heard a lot of women comment that they feel invisible, and I've even heard it suggested that it's just something that actually happens as you get older. You just become invisible. And I'd like to challenge that and just really give you my experience of feeling that and how I changed it. So I guess if you resonate with that feeling, you've probably got a story behind it. And I think we all have our stories that lead to that. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on my story, but the short bit of the story is that in late 2005, my husband's son, my stepson, died after a motorcycle accident, and he'd been in intensive care for nearly 5 weeks before he died. And it was a very, very sad and stressful part of our lives. And I often say that it felt not like I just lost my stepson, but I also lost my husband, because he was so sad and in such a very sad place, grieving very deeply for a very long time. And it felt like, my relationship had really fallen apart. It felt like I didn't have that anymore. And I thought, well, whatever we had is never going to be the same. And I don't know how many years after we lost our boy that this thought occurred to me, but I remember one day just having this, he doesn't even see me moment. And it was like a light bulb went off in my head, like one of those cartoons. And I was like, of course he doesn't see you. You've made yourself invisible. And that was exactly right. His pain was so great that I didn't do anything that was going to add to it or disturb it. I almost like tiptoed around him. Sometimes it was just so sad in the house, I'd just have to go out, and I really had made myself invisible. And it was when that realization came to me that I actually took responsibility and stopped being the victim, he doesn't see me, and just basically, said, hold it a second, I have contributed to this. And the great thing in realizing that is that I can change it. And I did change it. And before I go on to how I changed it, I just want to, tell you about some of the ways I've seen other women making themselves invisible. Getting dressed to go out and just saying, I don't want to stand out, I just want to blend in. So I'll just wear something that won't make me obvious. I just want to blend in. I don't want to be seen. Or people in meetings and there's some interaction wanted, so they sort of lower their eyes and literally are sitting there saying, don't look at me, don't look at me, don't ask me. Again, sending out a message to be invisible. And, there are probably countless examples like that. But looking to see where you've made yourself invisible gives you the key, if you like, to being able to change it. So what I did, I'm just going to give you my 3 tips that I initially did to change that feeling of invisibility, and actually to move the relationship I have with my husband. We've nearly been married 27 years, but to move it to a place that it's as good as it's ever been, and it gets better all the time. I couldn't have dreamed that it would be this good again, and better than before. So have heart and have hope if you're in that situation. So the first of my tips is I realized that I was responsible for making myself happy. It wasn't my job to make my husband happy or to somehow make him smile. That wasn't my responsibility, but it was my responsibility to make me happy. And I sort of made a year of a theme of self-love. So I did things that lit up my soul. I enrolled in a dance class. I went and started to learn pole dancing. It was fun. I just took time for myself. Anything that I did, I had this little, mental checklist. Is this something that is a self-love act? So I just did things that made me feel good. So that was the first thing. The second thing I did is that when I was with my husband in the same space, I just became very present to that moment. I just made myself completely present. Rather than my mind wandering, we'd often be in the same space, sometimes in the same room. Maybe the television was on, maybe we're driving. But I just made myself be there. Be there. Like I'm sitting, like in my mind, I would go, I'm sitting here with my husband. I'm sitting here with my husband. I'm so lucky to be sitting here with my husband, or maybe mindfulness type things, like what am I hearing? What am I seeing? What am I feeling? What am I smelling? All of those sort of things, just to keep me really present and in the moment. And the really amazing thing is that when I did that, there would be a connection. And when I'm talking connection, it might be the most tiniest little thing. It might be just a shared chuckle at something if it was television, or it might just be a comment when we're in the car, but it was a connection. It was a seeing. And the third thing I did, which is very related to that, is that when that happened, I just had this absolute celebration in my head. I'd be like, yay, yes, because I wanted to really lock in that feeling. So, our brains are hardwired to remember the painful stuff, the negative stuff. That's part of our survival. So a lot of the good things aren't remembered unless they're sort of hardwired in by being bigger than life. And so I made all those tiny little moments bigger than life in my head. And it changed everything. I mean, it didn't change overnight, but it changed. And what I realized from that experience is that invisibility is something that we choose. We may not realize we've chosen it. We may not realize, we may not be conscious of the fact that it's a choice and that we've chosen it, but probably in most cases, that's what's occurred. And for me, the empowering thing about that is that if I've made that choice, I can change that choice. And so if you are feeling invisible, I would invite you to try those things. Thanks.